Hi, folks. Rick Wedell here. I'm the Chief Investment Officer at RFG Advisory in Birmingham, and I thought I would reach out with a brief market commentary. Today is March 6th. It is Friday. And as I talk to you, the S&P 500 is at about 2950. That is down about 2.5% for the day. And interestingly enough, it is about at the exact same level that it was last Friday. So despite the sort of choppy up and down nature of the markets over the past 5 days, we're basically right back where we started, and returns have been flat for the week. That's something that brings up an interesting point, which is when the market gets exceedingly volatile like this, I find it helpful to pick sort of a point reference for your preferred index, be it the Dow Jones Industrial, the NASDAQ, the S&P 500. And just keep in mind where the absolute level of the index is relative to that point level. So, in your mind, if you want to think about the S&P 500 at 3,000 or 3,100 and thinking about being 150 points below that or 50 points below that, that can sometimes be a more helpful gauge of exactly where the market is, rather than trying to keep up with we were up 5, we were down 3, we were up 2, then we were down 2 days in a row. How does that math all come back together? In terms of the valuation of the index at that particular 2950 level, it's at about 16.5 times forward earnings, which is certainly attractive relative to where we've been in recent history. Certainly there's an argument out there that would suggest that maybe those forward earnings estimates need to come down in light of the coronavirus. I don't think analysts have really gotten their hands on exactly how much havoc the virus is going to wreak or not wreak with companies' earnings. But just from a pure valuation perspective, the S&P 500 appears at least cheap relative to recent history. If you think about the coronavirus itself, a couple of statistics that I'd like to just put into everybody's head. Viruses have what's known as an R naught. An R naught, if you will, Southern accent displayed there, apologies. And it basically is a measure of how contagious is the virus. So a highly contagious virus like the measles will have an R naught that's in the teens, which basically means that for every one person that gets it, they infect that many other people. The R naught for the coronavirus is somewhere between 2 to 3. So for every person that gets sick, they typically infect somewhere between 2 to 3 additional people, which is actually relatively low in the scale of infectious diseases. That's good news, particularly when you think about the fact that there are about 100,000 cases of the virus in the world today. And we're going to come back to that 100,000 number in a minute because it's a little bit misleading. But that 100,000 number has been doubling roughly every 1 to 2 weeks. Why does that matter? Well, we're only about 8 weeks away from the end of flu season, right? So flu season typically ends in late April, early May. And while we don't necessarily know if the coronavirus will behave the same way that the seasonal flu does or the same way that other coronaviruses have in the past, it's probably a reasonable bet to believe that it will. It's not known exactly why warmer temperatures help to slow the spread of the virus. People believe it may be that people get outside, they may get a little bit more vitamin D, and the virus may have a tougher time surviving in hot, humid conditions as opposed to cold, dry conditions. But regardless, assuming that the virus were to sort of start to peter out in late April, early May, then based on 100,000 cases today, we'd wind up with a total caseload around the globe of about 20 million people. Now, 20 million is a huge number, don't get me wrong, and certainly don't want to minimize the number of lives that would be lost if that were the case. If you think about it, 2 to 3% of 20 million people, that's a lot of people that would pass away. But in the grand scheme of 7 billion people on the planet, it's less than 0.2% of our population that would actually have the disease. So I just want everybody to maintain sort of perspective around exactly what the pandemic looks like. The other thing that I want people to have a little bit of perspective around is just what that 100,000 case number actually means. It's 100,000 total people that have ever had the virus. It includes the 60,000 people that have gotten the virus that have since recovered from the virus or sadly passed away. So if you think about the number of people that are actually sick right now with the virus, with confirmed cases, that number is actually about 40,000. And actually, it's declined. It was about 60,000 in mid-February. So the number of people that are actively sick has been going down to stable over the past couple of weeks, which is not something that you're going to hear on the major news media feeds because, once again, they want you to tune in and buy advertising. So anyway, hopefully that'll give you guys a little bit of perspective on coronavirus. Away from coronavirus, we had Super Tuesday this week. Joe Biden emerges as the likely Democratic frontrunner. The market likes that as opposed to a Sanders candidacy, so we will have to see how that continues to play out in the coming weeks. We got some reasonably positive economic data. In particular, the jobs report this morning looked very good. Of course, all of that was pre-coronavirus panic, so we'll have to see exactly how much the coronavirus impacts those hiring numbers. But at least coming into it, the jobs number looked quite strong. And we had the Fed cut rates by 50 basis points in response to the virus outbreak. We'll have to see whether or not that was a wise move or not, but it certainly is stimulus for the economy. In the meantime, our investment advice remains exactly the same. Please, now is a great time if you have tax losses to either realize those, if you have highly appreciated positions to potentially trim, or to rebalance your portfolios. With that, as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or to your advisor. And I hope you have a great weekend.